Right, so we've got it right. I haven't got myself muted this time, so welcome on a Fireside Chat again. Today, I'm joined by another fantastic guest, who's joining us all the way from Jerusalem, Israel. Is that correct? Uh,
Yes.
Mahmoud Khweis, thank you so much for joining us. Who is an entrepreneur, a thought leader. Actually, he's doing a multitude of things. So I would call him an intersection of different disciplines all in one characterization. So, welcome to the stage. Before you introduce yourself, I got to ask you, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Well, thank you very much for this warm description and introduction. I had in Arabic we call it labane, which is a type of yogurt uh, with a small piece of bread, and that's it. That was the only thing that I had, and now it's around 5 p.m. and yeah, this is the only thing that I had since the morning, um, from one meeting to another, and then after I finish here, also I have an additional meeting in 2 hours.
Wonderful. So you've had one piece of bread, and I hope you've got some beverage there to keep you going. I'd
Uh,
also like to welcome Aisha. Aisha, welcome. Aisha, can you hear us?
it seems not.
Aisha, when you can hear us, just pop in when your internet thing's sorted. So, Mahmoud, thank you so much. I'd love for the audience to get an introduction about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Again, thank you very much for giving me this platform. I am Mahmoud Khweis. I am a father of three boys from Jerusalem, an entrepreneur. I like working in the fields of management and supply chain, and this is my specialty, as well as my like the thing that I feel myself in it, my joy is by networking people together, especially business people. So I like to act as a mediator or someone who helps people to get into business together, and as well as give some insights to the future leaders, the Generation Z, uh, to give them some advices and insights to draw their own future.
You're also co-chairman of 50/50 Startups, and obviously we had a discussion yesterday about all the great your work you're doing. I'd love for you to talk about that and how you're bringing two communities that when we look through the medium of media and around the world, we have so many strong opinions about these two communities. You being on the ground there, I'd love to know about how your work came to being and how are you able to bring these communities together?
Sure, thank you very much. First, I would like to thank the co-founders of 50/50. I'm a co-chairperson, but not a co-founder. I joined the 50/50 7 months after they were established in the US as a 501c, a not-for-profit, an NGO, how we call it, and I became a board member since then. And 50/50 startups, we basically bring Palestinian and Israeli entrepreneurs together and give them the platform to start and to first of all to meet each other and to know each other as a human beings, and we help them to create ideas together, business ideas together, then walk them through the startups um, level of development to develop their own startups. And this is in cooperation with the Israeli College for Engineering and the Northeastern University in Boston. So yeah, in the news, and politicians want us always to appear as always fighting and always killing each other. While in the business, from the business perspective, we never stopped dealing with each other on different levels. in business. I'm talking about retail and trade, the old fashion of business. We never stopped that those deals between Israelis and Palestinians, and here I'm talking about business, not politicians. So the idea of having the third hub in the world, the best third hub in the world in high tech, just by crossing the road from you into Israel. Of course, after Silicon Valley and New York, Israel is the third hub in high tech. So I thought when I joined, I thought of the benefits of the Palestinian youth who are not taking good chances in Palestine towards developing their businesses and to go global. So bringing them to the Israeli high-tech system. It's about introducing the high-tech system in Israel to those Palestinians, and as well as introducing the Israeli high-tech system to the Palestinians. So my whole idea is that I don't want every Palestinian to see Israeli as a soldier, Israelis as soldiers, and they don't want Israelis to see all Palestinians as terrorists. We are doing this and taking into consideration that we all know the fact on the ground that we face the elephant in the room for both parties, and we allow them also those entrepreneurs to express themselves about how they feel about a little bit about politics, a little bit about religion, but most importantly about how to deal with each other as a human beings. So basically 50-50 is to help them to have 50% equity on shares. So the 50-50 is about the equity and the when they start a company to have a that company, Palestinians and Israelis would have an equal shares of that company, and enough with having always the Palestinians as workers or like a third degree workers. We have engineers, we have people who are very intellectual in Palestine, and we can cooperate with Israelis in business at the same level and the same um, um you know uh, the same level of work and the same level of seniority, and not always to be on the doing the shit work as Palestinians. Whether you have, for example, 20 years ago, if a Palestinian engineer wanted to go and work in Israel, the Israeli landlords and Israeli CEOs would think about him stereotype as a bathroom cleaner, or someone who could be a driver or delivery boy, even if he had his GPA like a 4 GPA at his and the honor degree from I don't know, Manchester University, but coming back to Palestine and work in Israel. This is a stereotype that we had before, and now we're digging a little bit through the senior levels, and especially in high tech companies and many other companies. This is still the start. The stereotype is still there. 50-50 is solving some of these issues for me as a Palestinian. And I understand my colleagues at the board, the Israeli colleagues at the board, that they have a different vision for 50-50, but it's a complementary vision. And this is the nice thing about it, that everyone thinks from their side, and we accept each person point of view, and we accept the others point of view, and we find a common ground in order to cooperate rather than to continue competing and continue killing each other. We believe that our accelerator is an economic accelerator and business accelerator. we do not interfere with politics, and we leave the politicians to do their role. But also, we decided that we need to take a role that we conducted our way and not by the politicians' way. Since politicians were dealing with politics with regards to the Palestine case for the last, I would say, 100 years, even before the establishment of Israel in 48. And we are not seeing any improve on the ground. For me as a manager, this is an indicator that this regime and this system and this methodology is not the best methodology in order to reach best results and good impact. So economy were always, economy depends on incentives, and the human being follows incentives always. Um, so giving incentives to those entrepreneurs, to those youth, probably in the future they would find a solution that they can decide on how they want to continue their future, either together, or if they decide not together, then it's their decision. But at least to give them the platform to think outside of the two
Status
obstacles that
quo.
I see. Yeah, the obstacles that I see are politics and religion. Those are the two obstacles.
So essentially, what you're doing is bringing people together through enterprise. The common goal of you see, the beauty of startups and entrepreneurship is to have a vision to solve a problem, and when you bring people together to solve that problem, it holds a whole new gateway in collaboration and community building. And I think that is the fundamental role of startups and entrepreneurs and even entrepreneurs going forward. And with that, then I'd like to ask you, in today's world, where we see so much ingenuity, but at the same point, you compare it to the last 100 years, and as you've talked about in the context of that particular situation, where not much has changed on the ground, but today things are changing so rapidly. The rate of change is exponential. In that rate of change, something today may not necessarily be relevant or must be redefined in 6 months, and startups having to adapt to that culture. So I'd like to come to the conversation about creativity and design in our education systems, right? Because I think one of the fundamentals that needs to be discussed is how do we change the way we learn so that we can implement the changes we want in our surroundings, whether that's our personal, professional lives, or in our startups or in our entrepreneurship. But the fundamental part of that. Aisha, welcome as well. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, and then I'd like that
That
question
question
to answer.
answer.
Thank you so much, Wasim. Thank you for having me, and was really enjoying this conversation. And I'm actually a visual tech artist myself. I like exploring new boundaries, working with technology, and then exploring what the potential of that AI and technology looks like. So what you said, it totally makes sense, because as artists, as thinkers, even as that domain which works on the idea of imagination and how we can push their limits, we are spellbound that how even an artist gets adapted to those things, because today digital art is taking over. So how do even artists stay up to date with that kind of technology? And you see around us, that atmosphere is even like growing. So me coming from a background of traditional arts, but then picking up on what digital arts can do for me, yeah. So like I'm working as a visual artist, I'm working as a creative director of Oshi Brownie, and yeah, loving this conversation. Thank you, Wasim.
Thank you,
Thank
Aisha.
you, Aisha.
Mehmet, so
So
what we
what
just
we just
discussed in the
discussed in the
question,
question,
how
Yeah.
how do
in this next
this
decade,
next decade
what needs to be
what to be
changed in
changed
your
in your
Mm.
The
the
voice. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's better right now. Do you hear me?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, excellent. It seems that there was a huge echo. Let's look. I'm a researcher, and when I start any research or study, or when I want to build any opinion, I depend on the literature, and the literature takes me to the cause and the reason for starting schools and universities. It was when they started these methods to teach people some skills and knowledge. They started these in order to find and to be able to bring people with the right mindset and skills to factories, and mainly into and to farms. Um, and I think it worked well, yeah, and creating like the school and the university system has worked well in order to develop the industry in the last hundred something years. But since now we are facing a new era, like we have a new type of knowledge that we need to acquire, and our kids, of course, the future generation would need to acquire. And since now we are moving from the actual industry, like I don't need to be to be physically as a person to you know to close a bottle of Coca-Cola. Now the machine is doing that, and now we as a human are thinking with a different horizon. It means that we need a different education system in order to prepare us to that future. The current education system in the whole world, not only in like in Palestine or in Israel, the whole education system is built still, as I said, it's built for creating labor. And what we need for the future is innovators and creative people. And these skills are leadership skills. It's not a labor skills. With all due respect, I'm here talking about the essence of the meanings of those two words. I'm not humiliating anyone. I respect every single job. But since we want to think for the future, we want to be standing on a solid basis. And the solid basis is, يعني part of it is to accept the truth that we are living in and that it doesn't fit for the future. As simple as that. So, in the high tech sector, for example, I'll give you an example that there is a replacement, the boot camps in the high tech sector are replacing the 4 years education system for software engineers, for example. Yeah, and it's working very well, and those guys are finding jobs and they are getting up in the hierarchy in their jobs, and they don't have a degree from a perspective from a respected university. um, this means we have an alternative that it works, and this is a big challenge for universities, and they need to rethink their business model. The universities and schools would need to start thinking about the student as a customer, and they need to provide this customer with what they need. It's a market driven, and the customer is the main thing in that market, and they would need to satisfy that customer. Otherwise, people would stop going to schools and universities, and this system would vanish. As simple as that. Now, it might look that this is something difficult to happen, but no one expected that Nokia would go down at that time, and it went down. So we need to think for the future, and we need to
to
regenerate
regenerate
a
a
new
new
education system.
education system.
You're on mute, Aisha.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So the things that you talked about, this is actually one of those things, which I think every university, or either it be like a physical structure, or virtually they are teaching courses, they need to think about. And also in terms of when I think about the education and what we're learning becomes obsolete within a few months. Like by the time the students graduate, that information is not that much relevant. So in that regards, what do you think about the way education is being structured, and the role of blockchain, and the upcoming technology, in the way it could possibly frame that narrative? Maybe if you could comment on that.
Sure.
Sure.
Um,
Um,
yeah, thank you. I will connect this to the policies. Each country has its own policy, and blockchain and future or the cryptocurrencies and the metaverse coming also in the future. Those are starting to replace the current situation and the current norms that we are used on. Um, since this is a fact, we need to deal with it as important as living, as striving to for our lives. Cryptocurrency um, is going to replace the all the environment harmful that printing money is doing. So
so,
yeah. Um, so yeah, we need to take it into consideration and deal with it as a fact for the future, and start building policies in order to know how to monitor it, and not to control it, but at least have some policies and regimes in order to finalize how we want to deal with this new way of transaction, of money transaction and goods transaction. It's
Um,
very important that we think about digital solutions, but also
so
it is
it
Yeah.
is
very
very
important
important.
that it is also very important that we think about how dealing with this would be less harmful, because in every aspect, every decision that we need to take, it has to be a no harm to anyone. And this requires lots of studies to know how it affects or impact special groups or different, or the governments, or the economy in general.
so one of the things I've got to ask you then, despite
Despite it,
sorry, there's that feedback, Aisha, coming from your as soon as you unmute. Um, despite
despite
sorry, happening again. Right, despite we're talking about how the education needs refining. Israel's startup system is still very adaptive, resilient. Some of the biggest health tech startups have come out of there. What is the culture in that startup system that you think is already working so well, and why is it working so well then so successfully?
There are many factors, but I would start with the policy factor, because the government is supporting that. There are many departments that are supporting the startup ecosystem in Israel. The legal system is also supporting. We have a friendly use financial system for startups. Um, the colleges and the universities in Israel has developed special courses, like a continuing education for those who want to continue with the startups, because Israel understand that they are a startup nation, and Israel understand that this is something that they want to be unique with, and they became unique. And a few years ago, former Prime Minister Netanyahu has a stand in front of the whole world with a flip chart and a marker. trying to explain what Israel want to do with the startup section and with the startup ecosystem. This we haven't seen it with any of the world leaders before, like on
It was
that
the video.
level to be like.
It was the video where he showed the top 10, and it had energy companies, and then he showed the flip when they all became technology companies. Is that the video you're referring to?
This is one of the videos. This is one of the videos. Yes, it's the concept of having the prime minister getting into that level of details and knowing where the country is going for. It reflects on all the other departments in Israel, all the other ministries. So everyone is supporting this. And I'm talking internally and externally. Even the embassies for Israel, outside Israel, they're doing a great job in order to bring businesses into the startup, into the country and into their system in order to help startups to accumulate better solutions and to have a better market share. So it's an ecosystem that was built, and all the ecosystem is supporting the startups. This is despite also, again, I want to add the generous fund from the government to startups. Like a seeds fund could reach 1 million shekels. This is around $300,000 as a seeds fund for a startup only to work on their MVP, like a prototype. Um, in other countries, they are giving $1,000. So there is a huge difference with the enabling environment for startups and the belief of the government and policies that have tailored all the policies towards the success of their startups. And um, this is one of the reasons that Israel have many exits every year, and other countries has less exits than Israel. It's an ecosystem that is an enabling ecosystem.
So one of the questions we've got from Malika is, how do you see the world of healthcare being disrupted over the next decade?
May you please rephrase? How do I see what? The
How do you see the future of healthcare being disrupted as industry?
healthcare is the future of uh, healthcare, and it is important as the AI and the VR as it was before. And the reason behind that is that we are human beings and we are fragile. We have a depreciation. If you look at our life, it starts at one point, then we develop and growth. We have the growth period, then we start to depreciate until we are expired. Okay, so in order to have a better value for the time that we're living onto this earth, we need to have a good health. And the good health is by establishing a good education health system supported with a technology. There are many there in Israel. I can tell you that there is a yearly fund that reaches around $3 million to healthcare startups or the health tech in general. And the way that Israel is doing it, it's in my opinion, it's the best way to do it. While you bring clinical surgery or physicians or dentists or like doctors who knows about health in general, and they mingle them with engineers and programmers. They put them in one group for like 1 year to focus on solving one topic, and it happens. This is how it happens. The subject matter expert, which is the doctor, knows the diagnosis and knows the problems in the health system because he comes from that system, plus all the scientific researches at the universities. and the programmer and the engineers and the managers and the financial system, the finance people, all those people are helping him in order to improve and to reach a solution into that specific uh, app or platform or whatever solution that they're thinking about. So as far as we have human beings, we would need healthcare, and it would be still important.
Absolutely. And we talked about you recently attended a seminar, and you were talking about neurotech, and please do give us more insight on that.
It was yesterday. It wasn't a seminar. I'm a mentor at Tel Aviv University with a neurotech competition. Um, so first of all, I'll tell you the concept. The concept of a university having a special competition for neurotech, this is something, this is an advantage that even the university have even thought about it, you know, to have a special um, sessions and special attention to the neurotech. Neurotech is very simple. I am mentoring a group or a startup, a group of people who are thinking about a startup to try to solve issues related to the brain um, actions and the electromagnetic in the brain, and try to understand it and simulated it, and try to interfere in order to solve some problems for students and other part of the community. This is basically because, you know, it's their idea. I cannot express more and to, you know, elaborate the idea. But in general, this is how it works. But I visited last week a company called BrainQ, and BrainQ is working on a. They have actually a patent. They developed um, a device, a wearable device that manages the electromagnetic waves inside the
the
brain,
brain.
which reflects on a better performance for the other body organs. Um, and it's well advanced. Such ideas receives a huge attention by Israeli investors, and such ideas. I'm not sure about BrainQ, but I know about other health tech ideas who received more than $40 million as a investment in order to prepare a solution and to work on bringing a solution to the humanity. And this is something else that startups, they need to think about humans and not to think about their small geographic area where they live. I advise all startups to start thinking about problems that all humans are facing, like the poor in poor countries, people who have illness all over, like the polio or any other diseases in the world. People with disability. We have many common diseases as a human all over the globe. So I would advise startups to start think about humanity, and then the money would come. So the business would come if they solve a problem for the human beings. Believe me, money follows good results.
So with that, we've talked about healthcare, we've talked about mind and the technologies that are being developed for the mind, and that's going to be a forefront. We know, for example, music can help with cognitive decline in Alzheimer's. We know gaming can be used as a user case scenario for cancer patients with palliative care. Instead of looking at morphine, can we utilize gaming to help them get through that pain of the day. Aisha, what I'm going to do is hopefully it clears up now. I'm going to close my mic so you can speak. But um, you originally want to do medicine, but you didn't do medicine. You ended up going into in a creative field. I'd love to know why you did that. And secondly, um, the work you do also led you to do a project on emotional mapping and artificial intelligence. So tell us about that, because a lot of the students here are from science backgrounds and they're thinking, how does it all link? So I'd love to hear that from yourself.
Yes, in fact, I was actually a pre-medical student before I joined a design and art school. And at that time, I was, because I was always passionate about impact, So maybe because of my limited understanding at that time, made me think that, okay, I just need to go into medicine. And up till today, like, I'm really fond of anatomy, I'm really fond of those drawings, sketching those. So it always makes me think about human body differently, so I enjoyed that, right? But yeah, at that point I just realized that, my mind is not like someone, okay, I can, study biology, anatomy, study the brain, but I can never become a person who can be a consultant in any way. So I could never imagine myself, right? And then I found this direction where I could translate that knowledge, that branch of information into something which is mine, which is directed by me in any way, right? And visual art and design just came naturally to me. So at that point, I actually understood at that point that, there can be some disciplines that you like studying, and then there are some disciplines through which you communicate those ideas, right? And that's the beauty of the cross collaboration. So in my university years, I've actually explored, the what do you say, the binary or the blurred boundaries between different disciplines, like between science and art, and then art and light pollution, dark skies, and how do we relate to these bigger issues, the social issues, through the language of visuals. Because as we know that the visuals speak to everyone, it doesn't require a language. And although now, because you asked me, I'm speaking about it to you, but I feel that the work itself has a language. No one needs to express what you're saying, and it communicates to the person, and the way that person is seeing that, the message comes across, right? So the project that you asked me about, the AI and emotion mapping, it's actually new for me too, because I've only done 2 projects up till now, which went into that. But we did go very deep into those, and the entire idea about that project, named as Plochik slash sentient sentiment, talks about the way robotics and these new technologies that we're going towards can shape the entire argument around humankind, and how we understand ourselves, our identity in the social era, in the virtual world that we're now part of daily. So this project was also very important to me personally, because I like talking about human emotions, human behavior, expressing what the culture looks like. But we have to acknowledge that those arguments are now shaped by technology. Those arguments are no more just about the humans, but it's about how technology interprets us, and vice versa. So machine learning has become, important part of that conversation now. It's no more just about what I think, what I'm putting out on social media. There is a lot of intervention now. So so that project talked about emotion mapping. We use the language of fashion, and we use the language of virtual 3D designing of models, to talk about not just robotics, but then how those more models that we ended up doing a fashion show with, they were not even, real models. So the entire idea was this, that we think about that this is identity, but at the same time that identity does not even exist. So what is real anymore? That is the dialogue now. So this was the idea. And then coming back to the same point that I was speaking about the cross disciplinary practices, right? That when we talk about these ideas, that how that robotics is going to come in and going to shape how we talk about our own emotions, then we also need to acknowledge that these platforms like Facebook and Snapchat and all these, they collect data about our emotions, and then they monetize on that, and then they give us more ads according to the personal interest of the people. And that is the power, I think. Collecting data and then knowing where to use that data is definitely the future. So my projects, which I did, talked about those things.
So Mahmoud, you heard what Aisha just said there in terms of her journey and how she changed her perspective in the projects you work on. Do you
Yes,
think going forward, when we look at education, you look at from a child's level, right? And we talked about this. You go to a lecture and you watch a presentation, and then you go home and you watch on YouTube to understand what you were supposed to learn in the lecture. Now, the thing that's stopping, in my opinion, why not just go to learn from different modes of learning is credentialing, micro credentialing. The fact that a credential says that you've studied this and I'm holding you accountable for what you've studied, and that now can be used as proof of concept um, in wherever you want to study. And to summarize, in the discussion we've had, we've talked about ecosystems, and that's one of the reasons why you've had such a success in a country like Israel. But for those countries and those places with a lack of resources that don't have those systems in place, is
yes,
there not an option now of decentralizing how we learn through peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer support?
sure.
If that's the case, what would you like to see as the fundamentals of learning going forward? I like to use the word rethinking how we think, relearning how we learn, and what perspective would you put on that?
Sure. Let me. I was talking about Israel a lot since I live in Jerusalem, but I'm also a Palestinian, so I'm also a part of the Palestinian ecosystem, where we have lack of resources, we have lack of access to different. For example, in Palestine, we don't have 4G yet, and we have the 3G. Only I don't know when people started to use 5G, we had the 3G, and this is the political obstacle that we are having. It gives some uh, obstacles to Palestinians who want to do e-commerce, for example. There's no internet. We don't have internet. Like the 3G, it's not very powerful. So and also with the other obstacles that we have in Palestine is the um, we do not have easy access for money. So if business people want to have if a startup in Palestine, for example, and have a client in India, for example, it is not it is not that easy that they could sell their product and receive a wire transfer through the banks up to a limit. It's all monitored. We are still living under incubation. This is a fact that we know about, and we do not say that we don't live under incubation. Yes, it is according to the international law. Even Jerusalem is still under incubation. And after the political agreement of Oslo and the economic agreement of Paris between here I'm talking politics between the two politician parties. Those agreements didn't have inside them any insight to support a Palestinian startup or even the Palestinian businesses. I know there is a lot of political thing of controlling the market by Israel, and Israel are in control actually, whether we said yes or no on the Palestinian Authority. Even high-tech engineers, if they want to go and work in Israeli company, they would need a permission, and it has to go through the House of Parliament, like the Knesset, in order to allow them to have access to work. So with all these obstacles, we as Palestinians have generated a new method of learning. It is still not common enough to have a critical mass, but it is a start. We are starting to have the knowledge from the university, and then to have the skills by the accelerators and the hubs. We have around 67 hubs in a small, basically it's a very small geographical area, yeah, but with a huge number of percentage, not number, with a huge percentage of graduates. 92% of the Palestinians are graduated from the universities. You know, each year we have around between 2,400 and 3,000 engineers, software engineers. But do we have a market that can absorb those employees? No. Our market absorbs up to 300, 500 maximum, and the rest they will need to find their way. And in order to find their way, there is a huge need and demand for online freelancing services, and this requires a self-learning. And many of the Palestinians are self-learning, and they sit for different courses to develop themselves in order to have an opportunity that they cannot have it because of the political system and the access that we do not have the luxury of choosing where to live and how to move and where to move, and all these stuff. While if I want to compare it to Israel, the Israeli passport, for example, can travel to 100 countries without a visa. For us as Palestinians, if you want to go to Jordan, which is, I don't know, 10 minutes drive from Jericho, uh, you need a special permit from the Israelis. So the access is one of the obstacles that we are having. But entrepreneurs and again, Generation Z, I like those guys. Those guys have always an innovative way in order to succeed, innovative way in order to reach their goal. Like they teach themselves through the online. They have networks all over the world. So the physical blockage, especially in Gaza, Gaza is under blockage for the last 16 years or something. And we have entrepreneurs from Gaza and success entrepreneurs from Gaza. You wouldn't even imagine. In a last study that I did for an international NGO, I was like mapping the innovation system in Palestine, including Gaza. The success stories in Gaza are much more than the West Bank, while Gaza has more blockage and less access than the West Bank. But still the same level of educated people with no market. And here I come to the policies. It is the role of the government to find jobs for those guys, to have or to agree. If they don't have a power to establish policies, at least to agree with Israel, who are controlling the country, in order to at least give those guys um, a light at the end of the tunnel, a space to breathe. Um, because look, I don't want to. I decided not to talk politics, but with all this pressure on Generation Z, who think differently than my generation, those guys have a different mindset. Those guys were born with a laptop, where they were born with a tablet. We were introduced to it when we were in our 30s or beginning of late 20s. So they have a different mindset, and we need to give a better platform for them to follow their colleagues from different countries. And sadly, the government is not doing that. In the future, I hope that this would not have a negative impact on the local security for communities, and with the violence within communities. When people don't have food, and they are seeing others who have less qualifications than them having food, people will not be happy, and they will start a revolution. Not only on the government. I'm talking about a revolution within their community. They wouldn't agree to work in a specific company with a specific regime, and the future is an employee future. In other words, the employee is deciding where he wants to work and with whom to and what conditions. It's different than before. Before it was similar to, I don't want to use the word slavery, but because of my English is not very good, this is what I think about. It is not slavery anymore. It is not that the land or the owner of the factory would decide how the work conditions for those people. It doesn't work with the. It will not work for the future, and therefore, um, as I said again, we need to find a platform. In Palestine, where there is no resources, we still have lots of successes. We have more than 100 entrepreneurs, even more, and those are the current ones, not even idea, not the ones who have only ideas. In almost no time, 10 years or something, 8 years, we have more than 60 incubators. Many NGOs also are supporting and working in the entrepreneurship system, working with women, households. The need gave them, has encouraged them to innovate new ways to live and to have a proper income. This is the secret, is with a proper income and proper and decent income. This is what motivates all humans, you know. Um, we are going to heaven. This is an incentive. If this incentive is not there, people will not go and pray. This is something that I believe in. So, if religions also are concentrating on incentives and it works, then I believe that governments would need also to think about it very seriously and start giving incentives to people for the young generation to innovate and create new methodologies and to create their futures. At least let them create their futures. Why do I need, as a 48 years old man, why do I need to create a future for my kids for the coming 40 years? We have suffered, our generation has suffered because because of those who decided how we are going to live now. They decided that, I don't know, in the last 200 years. And I'm suffering right now. So why do I need the new generation to suffer? I believe we need to mingle and to bring a new blood. I'm not saying replacing the current expertise. We can also advise. We have our own lessons. We have created our lessons learned. We have experience in life. I believe people in my age, at least. So if we mingle with the younger generation, I believe we would reach better results than we decide that deciding for them.
Ruth, I got to ask you, do you game? Do you play games yourself?
Candy Crush
Candy Crush. Okay.
for
And,
the
and
last for the last 10 years.
and it's interesting where you talk about, the experience and the youth. This talk obviously would always have questions due to the scenario of where you're from and the two people that are there. I will end a question on that topic, but just before we go there, uh, we talk about experts and Generation Z, so on, right? And when you go to meet someone, when you do a job interview, the common practice is to research and understand what you're doing. Do you think, and I'm not talking about Generation Z now, do you think it's time that the experience, that 40 plus group, um, looks at things that these kids or young people do, whether it's gaming, whether it's fusion tech, whether it's fusion art, NFTs. And just like you would prepare for an interview, to build those relationships with those young people, it's about time you pick up a controller and a pad and say, rather than, hey, these kids, they're always on the devices, they don't know how to communicate. They are communicating. It's just they're doing it in their own way. So,
Sure.
are we going to see you playing Fortnite or FIFA football anytime soon?
Yeah, sure. Why not? My kids are doing it. My kids are always on the Xbox, and they're always doing it. If I have enough time, look, it's not my interest right now. But if I need to do it, I will do it. Of course, I will do it. Um, uh, I'm using um, I'm using Zoom now for meetings. I didn't before. So when there is a need, if we are clever enough, we need to do it. And with regards to the communication thing, because I hear many people who are complaining that their kids are not communicating enough, or they're not, they don't feel that they are part of the family, and all this blah 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 thing, which is I respect how people believe, but I don't need to agree with how they believe. Communication doesn't have to be with interacting with between two people. Yeah, communication is interacting with other horizon. Yeah, if my kid is interacting very well through his device, maybe I need to change my method. If I want something from him, I'll just text him, WhatsApp, because this is the best tool for him to communicate with him. In management, when we teach communication, we the intermediary is very very important. What intermediary we use? Is it an email, or is it a just a letter, and that I need to wait 3 weeks to receive it by regular mail, or send it by email, or just via WhatsApp? If my kids are interacting better with this way of communication, so why do I have to pull them down to my history, to the things that I'm used to do it, and not accepting that I need to develop my skills in order to come to the future and deal with them with the language that they understand, using the same mediator that they are familiar with. So I believe it's a selfish from parents that they want to drag their kids back to what they believe, and because normally parents, they want copy of themselves. They want their kids to be copy of themselves, or they want their kids to fill the gap that they couldn't improve themselves. So we need to deal with our kids as individuals and people who can like a separate entity. Yeah, this is not mine. Yes, I created this is my son, but it doesn't have to be a copy from me. This is a separate entity. They have their own feelings. It could be different than my feelings, different thoughts, different way of interaction, of interacting and intervention with the surrounding environment, and it should be acceptable for me as a parent. Yeah. So I believe also it's not. I don't believe it is fair that we always complain about our kids, and not taking into consideration that it is also our role to be open-minded and understand that there are different ways of communication, and to develop our skills in order to use those communication. But if you just, I want to apologize for all the comments. I'm reading the comments, but I can't find anywhere to write myself on it. So this is why I'm not answering the comments.
After the session, if you'd like, you can go on the LinkedIn and you can respond to them there.
Sure, I will.
But there are a lot of questions. So we've approached the 1 hour mark, so we'll end it here and have our last thoughts. I do want to go back with one of the comments from Dr. Mohammed Alami, who going back to what you mentioned about 50-50 and the The discussion is what it is. So don't you believe that any successful partnership or cooperation, all parties need to be 50-50, freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom of talk, and freedom of expression?
Yeah, I totally agree, Dr. Muhammad. I'm a liberal, so I do believe with in freedom. I believe that everyone is free and should have a freedom of deciding. But in our case, Doctor, we have two governments that are taking the lead on deciding the channels that they want us to be in. And those ways, I do not believe that those ways are very successful because there were many leaks into those methods. Um, so we're taking this initiative in order to find different ways for people to be free and for people to have to decide their choices and to have a freedom of movement. Of course, I do agree on that, and freedom of talk and expression. This is something that we need to encourage and empower among our youth, and remove all the obstacles that does not allow this. But again, there are limits to what we can do as an NGO or as individuals, and we are working within the maximum limitations that we can reach. But we are not policymakers, and we are not politicians. We are not like heads of we are neither in the parliament, neither ministers, neither government officials in order to decide. Though I totally push towards a freedom of access for Palestinians, freedom of expression for Palestinians and Israeli youth, because there is also inside Israel community, there is a huge rejection on 50, not only 50-50, but also other initiatives like 50-50. They don't want their kids to deal with Arabs and Palestinians. So it is both ways. We're trying to find a spark where our kids both, it doesn't matter what their language is and what their religion is. In business, we are giving them all the freedoms that Dr. Muhammad has mentioned, and we are giving them an equal opportunity when they start their business. It is a 50-50 equity, as I said. But I know where Dr. Muhammad comes from, and I agree with him. But I believe that we are doing what we can, but we have limitations as individuals. It is the role of governments, both governments, to agree and to put pressure on each other and to agree on how they want to implement these freedom values. But freedom values should be there in the whole world, and dictatorship and the military regime in countries, it will not lead to uh, a good future for our kids. But our kids will survive the same obstacles that we are surviving right now because of the political regimes that we lived under.
I think whether you're a Israeli parent or a Palestinian parent, the emotions are the same. Aisha, you touched upon it when it comes to, for example, emotional mapping, and the hope is initiatives like yourselves do bring people together, and most importantly, those people, those young kids, come together and really recognize that our differences are actually our strength, and the complex problems globally we're facing in terms of climate change and the issues we're facing, they're not going to affect any one individual, they're going to affect all of us. and we can always solve it collectively. So, with that, Mahmoud, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being forthright and willing to take on all the questions, because it's not always easy with such a complex issue. Aisha, thank you so much for joining as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for the audience. I want to thank all the kids who came here from different backgrounds with an open mind to come and learn. And hopefully, we can respond to your comments after that. So, with that, we're going to debrief. Aisha, do you want to give any advice you want to give any young person today on what they should think about learning that will help them thrive? And then I'll let Dr. Mahmood end the conversation with a short question.
Yeah, for like I don't know if it's an advice, but I would say that if you really want to make a change, and change can be small or big, you need to have an open mind. You need to be at the receiving end of the ideas, as well as the one who communicates that, and that's the way you learn and you adapt to the new ideas. Because biases are created so easily, and it's always a good thing to involve as much discussion around the topics that you're interested in. And learning is a lifelong process. It's a process. You can't say that I've learned a lot in a field. It's never enough. So we should always just receive more, give more, and keep up to date with the current technology, hopefully. So yeah, that's my message.
Mahmoud, I'd love for you to answer that and take that away.
Yeah, sure. Last, I couldn't hear because the echo was very high.
I just wanted to last thoughts for young people around the world who
Yes,
must consistently redefine themselves. What skills would you point them towards to thrive in this next decade?
sure. There are many skills, but I would concentrate on self-learning and open mindset. Again, I agree with Aisha that people would need to get out of the place and the limitations that the history or the stereotype or our parents has put us inside it, and don't think outside of the box. It shouldn't be a box there. It shouldn't there be. It shouldn't. We shouldn't have a box even. So yeah, open your mind to the to no limits and self learning. If you want to develop yourself, you don't need to lose any time into that, and it is your decision whether you want to climb up to the top of the pyramid or to stay at the bottom of the pyramid. It's your decision, and you take responsibility for it. Don't blame anyone if you failed. Start with yourself. There is nothing called blaming others. It's one of the things that I teach my kids, and I believe in it. I just replan or rethink the tools that I used instead of blaming.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Fantastic session. Thank you, everybody who contributed. 2022 is going to be interesting. We hope we should be coming out of this whole pandemic, which hopefully will maneuver itself to become an endemic and will hopefully get out of the whole COVID situation. We do have the World Cup coming up in 2022, and that's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people. It's the first time it's being held in the Middle East, and I think that's a great opportunity for people to come together through sport. But also, if you're a designer, if you're a creative, if you're a scientist, it doesn't matter what you do, you might want to think about how you're going to utilize the narrative of the World Cup to push your startup, push your objective, whether you do 3D printing or whether you do NFTs. There are lots of ways you can really revolutionize your work next year. And these are the discussions we're going to be having over the coming weeks and months. So look forward to seeing you. Mahmoud, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Aisha, again,
Thank
thank you
you.
for contributing. Uh, Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Wasim.
you,
Thank
Wasim.
Aisha.
Thank Aisha.